Welcome to Heritage Genealogical College's presentation for African American genealogical research. This comes from our textbooks, African American Genealogical Research, Volumes 1 and 2. The example that we are using today is tracing Zachariah Embry, a Georgia slave. In this particular slide, the census shows Zachariah Embry and his wife, Mariah, and a girl named Caroline Bray. I don't think that she is their child. I suspect that she is a sister of Mariah. I guess the question is, now that we've found the person we're looking for, were there other Black Embrys in Harris County, Georgia in 1870? No, they are not listed on the census there, but there was a Black family in the next county in Muskogee County, Georgia. So there are two Black Embry families on the 1870 census in adjacent counties. Were they related to each other? And were they related to white Embrys in Harris County, Georgia in 1870? Well, look at the census, tells us no, but there was one white Embry family in Muskogee County, Georgia in 1870. Here's the second Black Embry family on the 1870 census of Georgia. This is the one in Muskogee County, Georgia, and this is a woman, Martha, and several children. We don't know whether she is related to Zachariah, and we don't know whether she is related to the white Embry family that is also in Muskogee County. When I say related, I mean that there's any kind of connection, if she was a slave to that white family. Here is the white family, Jasper Embry, his wife Lucy, and 4 daughters. With no obvious white Embry family to connect Zachariah Embry with, the 1860 census of Harris County, Georgia was researched. The 1860 census of Harris County, Georgia shows Newton Embry with a wife named Lucy and a daughter named Rosa, which was the same in 1870 in Muskogee County, and a bunch of initials. Could this be Jasper Embry that was in Muskogee County in 1870? Okay, Jasper Newton Embry is compared 1860 to 1870. These are the white families. Now, 1860 slave schedule for Harris County, Georgia shows that Newton Embry lived there. That's where Zachariah showed up, and he has a number of slaves. There were no male slaves owned by Jasper Newton Embry the right age to be Zachariah Embry in 1860. And there were no other Embry families living in Harris County, Georgia in 1860 other than Jasper Newton Embry. These are pictures of Jasper Newton and his wife and children. Let's compare Jasper Newton Embry on the left with Zachariah Embry on the right. Both were born in 1825. With the census, it looks like 26, but I found out that they are both born 1825 in Georgia. Both lived entirely different lives from each other, and they both used the Embry surname. Was there a connection between them? Could Jasper Newton Embry have owned Zachariah Embry in 1850? Here is the 1850 census of Harris County, Georgia. Jasper N. Embry is listed with his wife Lucy and a young daughter. This is the 1850 slave schedule of Harris County, Georgia. This shows Jasper Embry with only 2 slaves. In 1850, Jasper Newton Embry owned 2 female slaves ages 11 and 13. He had no male slaves that could have been Zachariah Embry. Were there any other Embry families living in Harris County, Georgia in 1850? Yes, there were. There was Joanna, her name is really Johanna, but it was misspelled, and a couple of children. The 1850 slave schedule of Harris County, Georgia for Johanna Embry shows that she had a lot of slaves, and I put Zachariah's name where he would fit statistically to be in this group. There was one other Embry family in Harris County, Georgia in 1850, and this is his slave schedule. His name was Martin Embry, and he was a brother of Jasper Newton Embry and a son. Both of them were sons of Johanna Embry. He had no male slaves. With everybody eliminated except for Johanna Embry, it appears that she most likely was the owner of Zachariah Embry. So how do I prove that the 25-year-old black male slave on the 1850 slave schedule of Harris County, Georgia, underneath Johanna Embry's name, was really Zachariah Embry? Of course, I will need to research the white Embry family in census and in tax records. I also need to research the black Embry family through statistics found in the census and tax records of the white family. So in 1840, here is Johanna Embry, and she does, she has a lot of children. Here is the 1840 slave schedule for Johanna Embry in Harris County, Georgia. And if you look under the slaves and under the males, there are 2 male slaves between 10 and 24 years old. Zachariah Embry was 15 years old in 1840, and he could very easily be one of those statistics. Harris County, Georgia was founded in 1827. There were no Embrys listed as living there in 1830 on the census. So when did the Embrys come to Harris County, Georgia? Other types of records in Harris County, Georgia need to be researched to determine exactly when the white Embrys came there. Normally, it'd be a simple matter of going to the land records of Harris County, Georgia and looking up the Embry surname. But there were some things that were not normal with this land transaction. It turns out that Johanna was widowed, and through research that I'm going to show you coming up, it turns out her husband was named Joel Embry. And even though I know her husband's name, it wouldn't have shown up until the land was sold. It turns out that Joel's father was William Embry, who had been a Revolutionary War soldier, and he was eligible to draw for land in one of the Georgia land lotteries, and he won this land. So the date of when Joel moved to Harris County had to be established another way. I will show you a church record coming up that actually lets me know when he came or left where he lived to come to Harris County, Georgia. Probate records in Harris County, Georgia were extremely helpful. I found a will for Joel Embry, who listed his wife as Johanna and listed some of the slaves, one of them being Zachariah, that he wanted his wife to inherit to help her with the plantation after he was gone. Very important to finding more about Zachariah Embry is the inventory and appraisement of the property of Joel Embry. The slaves were listed separately as that type of property. You can see a family of 10 people. It looks like the parents are Charity and Harry, and it lists Monroe, a boy of 8, Parthena, a girl of 5, Carolyn, a girl of 4, Lucinda, a girl of 3, Louisa, a 9-month-old child, Charles, a boy of 12, and Mariah, a girl of 9, and Zachariah, the one that we want, is 7. But it's obvious that Zachariah was owned by Joel Embry, and we need to find the 1830 census, see the statistics. So since he didn't live in Harris County, we need to look on the census indexes, and we find that he was living in Oglethorpe County, Georgia. So this is the white family right here. Here is the slave schedule, and we see one statistic that would fit to be Zachariah. So there's one male child that would fit to be Zachariah, and there are 4 daughters, which means that 2 of the people that were listed above in the inventory, 2 of the boys, do not belong to the slave family of Charity. So how do I really know that Zachariah Embry was the statistic on the 1830 slave schedule rather than Charles or Monroe? Charles was born either 1819 or 1820, and he was too old to be the statistic on the 1830 slave census of Oglethorpe County, Georgia. Monroe was almost the same age as Zachariah, and he could have been that statistic on the 1830 census. However, Monroe was sold to a man from Chambers County, Alabama, and he left the Harris County, Georgia area in 1832. Zachariah Embry remained. Now that it has been established that Zachariah Embry was the statistic found on the 1830 census of Oglethorpe County, Georgia, a search of the tax records of Oglethorpe County needed to be done to see when he first showed up as a statistic. Here are the Oglethorpe County, Georgia tax records for Joel Embry between 1818 and 1831. As you can see, it looks like Joel had just one slave for several years. The 1820 census of Oglethorpe County, Georgia agrees with the tax list that I've showed you so far. He just had one slave. In these tax lists, most of the time there's just one slave, the female, and then in 1822 there's 2 slaves. And there continues to just be 2 slaves, but there's a sudden burst of children after the 1826 tax list that doesn't exist or didn't survive, to where they suddenly go to 5 children. So in other words, the slave children were not being counted, which is unfortunate. But with the 1830 census statistics, we've got an idea that there was a sudden yearly child being born. Here's 1827, 28, 29. Although not stated in William Embry, Joel's father's will, it appears that he inherited Charles. This is the church record that provides the time period that Joel and Johanna and their children left Oglethorpe County, Georgia for Harris County. They were members of the Clouds Creek Primitive Baptist Church, and on February the 11th, 1832, the family was dismissed by letter, meaning they were in good standing in the church, to go to their new home. So they left February 11th, 1832, and went to Harris County, and by July 31st, 1832, Joel had died. This is the listing from the probate records of Joel Embry, and it shows Zachariah, a boy 7 years old, was worth $250 at that time in 1832. Here is a summary of the events in Zachariah's life to 1870. In 1825, he was born in Oglethorpe County, Georgia. In 1832, he moved to Harris County, Georgia. In 1832, Joel Embry, who owned him, passed away and he was only 7 years old. His value was $250 at that time. Also in 1832, his family was split apart. His mother and his younger sisters, Carolyn, Lucinda, and Louisa, moved to Chambers County, Alabama, along with Monroe. In 1832 through 1858, Zachariah remained on the Johanna Embry plantation until her death in January of 1858. Immediately at that time, he and all the other slaves were rented out for a period of 1 year. At that time, Zachariah Embry was appraised as being worth $1,000. He was age 32. In 1859, when he was 33, he was sold to M.B. Roberts of Harris County, Georgia. Zachariah was the only Embry slave in Johanna's appraisal that was sold outside of the Embry relatives. In 1860, Zachariah Embry was 34, and he was a statistic in the slave schedule under M.B. Roberts. In 1870, Zachariah Embry was listed with a wife and a child 12 named Carolyn Bray that was living with them. He is believed to be a younger sister of Mariah. Zachariah Embry and his wife, Maria or Mariah, spelled both ways in different censuses, they moved to Perry, Fulton County, Georgia, and that's where Atlanta, Georgia is located. He worked as a farm laborer in both Harris and Fulton counties after the war ended. The couple appears to be childless. In 1870, there was the 12-year-old Carolyn Bray living with them, but she has never been mentioned again. She's thought to have been a younger sister of Mariah. It appears that Mariah died after 1880, and after that time, Zachariah married again to Mary Wilson in Fulton County in 1892. Zachariah Embry actually wrote a will in 1896 in Fulton County, Georgia. He wanted his wife Mary to inherit first. If she died before he did, then his sister Louisa Butler would inherit next. And this is another thing that ties Zachariah to the family of Charity and Harry and the sisters. This will shows that he found Louisa, his 9-month-old sister, when she left for Alabama. They found each other again. And also some other relatives, I don't know by which sister, but then if Louisa was to die, he wanted his nieces Mariah and Clara Peters to inherit next. This is confirmation that he was the same 7-year-old Zachariah and Joel Embry's inventory. The example used today to study Zachariah Embry's life is part of the research that is found in our African American textbooks. These textbooks are for sale. You may order them through mygenealogybooks.com or phone the Heritage Genealogical College to buy directly. Thank you.